Welcome to the Dynamics of Life model that I created after nearly 30 years of studying systems theory. It describes the process of life for living systems from a single-celled creature to an individual human. But then it's also valid for social systems like families, communities, companies, and nations. A living system always lives in an environment. So the wavy lines in the diagram, they show you how living creatures impact their environment at the same time as the environment impacts the creature. It becomes a bit of a dance. Life exists in flows of matter, energy, and information from the environment enter within the system's boundary. Now, there might be a membrane, skin, or even a country's boundary. Living systems need extra energy to compensate for the energy lost due to nature's tendency to wear down and deteriorate. This is called entropy. So, food is converted to energy, and that is distributed through the body to wherever it's needed. The more complex the creature, the more body processes that have to be all balanced out, and the more energy that takes. Not all the matter, energy, and information that's taken into a living system can be used. Some of the food we eat is expelled back into the environment. The living creature creates feedback loops to maintain its internal bodily functions and survive in the external environment by avoiding threats like predators and maintaining the flows of matter, energy, and information. If the flow can't be maintained, the creature will get sick, might even die. So these two loops form what we call the primary loops. Every time we act, we open the space for a reaction. Isaac Newton discovered that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So a government might pass a law, but that prompts people to protest. I might eat food that's gone off, and then my body reacts. Carl Jung used the term shadow to describe suppressed emotions as a reaction to traumatic events. So we have to manage the reactions that arise from our actions. Sometimes the shadow needs to be controlled and even eradicated, but sometimes the reaction indicates an error in the primary system that needs to be rectified. Now, as seen in the diagram, shadow loops, both internal and external, arise from the reactions to the primary feedback loops. Life breathes. All living and social systems live in a cyclical flow. At the start, there's an expanding phase, followed by a contracting phase. Holling and Gunderson expanded on this to create a four-phase cycle they call the adaptive cycle. So, initially an animal or organization is rather fragile and vulnerable, but it grows very rapidly. Eventually, however, this growth will slow down as it moves into a conservation phase. So imagine an island, newly discovered. People come to it. Population growth is initially quite slow, but it grows really quickly. In the end, it will move to the next phase of release, where things fall apart. And the great empires of history eventually went into decline. If the release phase is survived, the system moves into reorganization, reforming itself for a new cycle. A small group of people can coordinate their actions quite simply. They get together, hear all the points of view, and come to a shared agreement. But as group size increases, the group becomes more complex, and this level of informality becomes very, very unwieldy. A group of 200 people does not have the time to hear all the opinions, and the diversity of all the ideas widens. It quickly becomes more efficient for the group to choose a leader or leaders to make decisions on behalf of the group. DNA, in a way, is like a leader because it decides how the body cells will organize. And our brain similarly takes on a role coordinating body functions. And we as humans form groups that we choose leaders for. As we choose leaders, shadow people will arise to react against them. And this can often take the group from the conservation phase into the release phase. Greg Henriques describes 4 hierarchical stages through which we have evolved as human beings. So over time, matter from the Big Bang collected together to become atoms and molecules. They developed as far as they could. Some of that matter just happened to be able to jump to the next level up, the level of life. Single-cell creatures with a membrane could metabolize matter, energy, and information. But eventually these single cells started to come together and collected as multi-celled creatures. Those creatures kept evolving and they reached their limit until some of them could jump to the level of mind. A centralized nervous system could more efficiently coordinate all the body parts. And then our early ancestors came down from the trees to live on the savannah, and they sparked the next level, the social level. They created culture by coordinating their actions through social rules. Henrique suggests that we might be ready for another leap to a more spiritual way of living. Each of the new levels sits on the foundation of the previous level and cannot exist without it. Each level requires more energy to maintain than the previous levels. A survival brain is involved with body functions linked to the life level. Our emotions and thinking are centered in the mind level, and our social skills are centered in the cultural level. The Eros tree is the tree of life and growth, and it grows through all of the 4 levels. So just as in a real tree, the separate branches are actually all connected to make one whole tree. We evolved from the bottom to the top. We have the bottom level of survival, the emotional level where we're motivated by pain and pleasure, the thinking level where our beliefs and values guide our decision making, and the social level with all its rules about how we should act. The ideal is that all levels in our mind function together in harmony. That is when we make the best decisions and we are the most productive. Now, our brain is 2% of our body by weight, but it uses 20% of the body's energy. It's the most expensive body organ we have. When we're overwhelmed by a situation through stress or trauma, we try to reduce the energy load by closing down some of the functions. The higher brain functions are more expensive for the body to run, so we turn off our brain from the top down. Unfortunately, this also means that we lose our social abilities, things like listening, cooperating, compromising, and negotiating. And that's when we most need them. We drop back to the thinking level, where we can easily slip into an I'm right, you're wrong attitude. And when that is even too expensive to run, we fall back on emotions and we just yell and scream and cry. After that, the only level left to resolve our differences is the body, and that's when we fight. The Thanatos tree describes that descent as we become less and less capable. Alcohol consumption closes the brain down in the same order. So this concludes our brief overview of the dynamics of life model. It describes how all living and social systems work through flows of matter, energy, and information, and how human beings have 4 levels of functioning that work together. When all 4 levels work in harmony, we are at our best. Thanks for watching.